Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. So glad you have chosen to join us today. Got the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter, coming up. We are going to get a crash course in recruiting. So much stuff has been going on. Dave and I touched briefly, on some things yesterday, but we've got Bill and Mark here to kind of set us straight on Cruton. Lots of good stuff, and we will finish with Mark, who has been all over the state. We're going to do a deep dive on Akron Hoban, which is loaded with possible future Buckeyes. So first, fellas, if you haven't purchased a Father's Day gift yet, yeah, we thought so. Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Maybe your pops has had work since the 70s, and that's okay. Our friends at Manscaped have crafted the total package for a special day. Whether it's for the boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there, Manscaped has Pops' bases covered. Head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS. From daddy to zaddy, trust Manscaped. The Shears 3.0 is the 5-piece precision men's nail grooming kit that any father needs to stay on top of his self-care with professional-grade stainless steel tools, sized and styled for the task at hand. That set of underwear he got for Christmas a decade ago definitely needs upgrading. And what better way than with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0? Plenty of stuff here for all your dads. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code BUCKNUTS. Never forget where you came from, if you know what I mean. Happy Father's Day from Manscaped. Two other proud fathers bringing to the stage here, Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter. Like I told the peeps, we are going to finish the show today with a deep dive on Akron Hoban, which, good Lord, has elevated itself to the point where they have a number of Ohio State caliber players, some already on board, and they deserve a deep dive. So first, Bill. Tons of recruiting info out there, and it's getting to the point where guys with commitments in this new era of college football are traveling all over the country with their commitment to visit other schools. We're kind of getting used to this new vibe. Can you bring us up to speed on a certain gentleman named Dakorien Moore, ironically decommitted from LSU? I watched a thing with Mike Roach yesterday, who is a Texas expert, and again, Bill and I tell you this all the time. If you're not getting the information from the on-the-ground experts we have all over this country, you are doing it wrong. These guys are great. Bill is the best in the business, but he does not live in Texas. So
I used to.
True, Bill. I doubted the Dean for a split second there and got cracked, so I deserve that. But Dakorien Moore, here's what I found interesting. Dakorien Moore, Duncanville, Texas, thought to be the number one receiver in the country. He was committed to LSU, decommitted, but he's no longer considering LSU. One of the questions posed to Mike yesterday was, who's a long shot candidate? And he said there are no long shot candidates. He's got 3 teams, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon, that he'll decide between. Kind of interesting that he didn't re-include LSU in that. So Ohio State has a little bit of experience getting number one receivers. Got the number one receiver in the class after him. What do you think of Dakorien Moore? How is this going to play out? All that good stuff. And then as you're chatting here, we are going to try and show you some video of Dakorien Moore. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, first of all, Dan, how could you possibly forget that I lived in Houston, Texas 40 plus years ago? That's just a little bit ago. Yeah, that was
very forgetful, Bill, and I interrupt a lot, so be careful.
Yeah, that was over 40 years ago. I did live in Houston for a brief period of time. But getting back to Dakorien Moore, I would totally agree with Mike Roach that there aren't really any long shots. You know, he's going to decide between 3 schools, and he's making official visits to all 3. So, you know, how can you say or think that anybody is totally a long shot? He's going to make official visits to Ohio State May 31st. He's got Texas after that, June 14th, and Oregon June 21. And for a kid from Texas and for a great wide receiver, how could you count out Ohio State? How could you count out Texas, obviously, who he has been trending towards, but also how could you count out Oregon? I mean, they're all great schools. Again, the trend has been to Texas, but I think anybody would be foolish to discount Brian Hartline and the Buckeyes in this one. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to go down on how the official visits go.
And Mike Roach, the Texas guy, also said that it's kind of, there's been a time when they thought Oregon was in front. There's been a time when they thought Ohio State is in front. And like you said, Texas has currently kind of got the vibe. But Mike was I think Ohio State fans would be very happy with how he talked about Brian Hartline. He just said it's a second to none pedigree right now, and they're going to get considered. Mark, as you watch this video, you had a minute to check him out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this Brian Hartline takes the same type of receiver over and over. And some of the characteristics that stand out is the straight line speed. These guys can all run. When they get in the open field, they pull away from defenders. They have hands where they snatch the ball out of the air. They just don't have good hands. They go up and make plays and grab, 50-50 balls. But they also, the key trait, I think, is they come in and out of their breaks. When they sit down on a hitch or they turn on and out, they really do a good job of making it look effortless, and they really separate coming in and out of those breaks. So you have separators with great hands, and then when they get in the open field, they have the speed. I think when they check those three boxes, I don't think it matters for size for Coach Hartline if they're 6'4" or if they're, 5'10". As long as they have those three traits, and here he is again, an open field. Guys have angles that he pulls away. He has the jets in the open field there. The guys that can catch bubbles. And these guys also have toughness. We don't see a lot of blocking clips on this, but they'll stick their nose in there and get feisty with you. There you go. You see the explosion there from a stop. He just goes right by that guy. So the stop-start on a lot of these kids that we're seeing is no different than the Kurelic Moore has, which is outstanding.
Let's keep in mind, too, that there are times when you watch tape of a guy with this extreme athletic ability, and you say, oh, what's the level of competition? He's playing at Duncanville in Texas, which is the biggest classification. There is no issue with level of competition at Duncanville, Texas. Bill, is that a fair statement, you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about Texas high school football, and I experienced it for a year, even if it was a long time ago. It's incredible down there. And you get into any of the big schools, of which Duncanville is, you're talking about it almost always great competition. And certainly at Duncanville, that's the case.
I think they may have won the state championship in 6A. I might be talking stuff there, but I kind of feel that's accurate. Even so, they're in the mix. Okay, let's talk about another receiver in the news. Shocker, it's Ohio State, and that is Jamie Ffrench. Very interesting one, Bill. I watched another recruiting show that we put out, and Tom Lloyd talked about it. And I get the sense that Jamie is not telling anybody really where he wants to go right now, and there's a lot of speculation surrounding it. What does the dean think of the Jamie Ffrench situation?
I think the key is him making an official visit to Ohio State, getting back on campus and all that. And I do tend to think I will be a little surprised if it does not happen. He is making official visits to a number of schools this June. Miami is one of them. Certainly, that's a concern. Tennessee. We've got Texas again. Not a shocker there. So, he is making those official visits. He does not right now have one locked in. At least he's not saying he does with Ohio State. If that visit happens as of right now, it would be expected to happen during the season for a game. If it does happen, I would continue to love, and I tend to think it will, I would continue to love Ohio State's chances. You get the in-season visit after he's made those other visits. You get him at a game and all that, and you got Brian Hartline recruiting him. Would be hard to bet against the Buckeyes in that case.
Marcus, you've got some video up here of Jamie Ffrench, or is it Kurelic Moore in Jamie French's uniform?
I was thinking the Kurelic Moore gives you the Olave, Garrett Wilson, maybe Terry McLaurin vibe. This gives me more of the Smith and the Jigba. Maybe Marvin Harrison, Emeka Ibuka vibe, just because he's a little bigger kid. He looks like he's a little longer. The frame's a little more stretched out. But, the hands in the first couple plays, the way he's high pointing some of these balls and snagging them, checks that box. The open field speed, even though he's a little longer, when he put his foot in the ground and takes off, and we'll see another one here, he splitted 3 defenders right there. Just ran right through the middle of 3 guys that all had a beat on him. So he's checking that burst and speed box. But, yeah, I think because he's bigger, more Emeka Ibuka, and I hate they always use like the Marvin Harrison because it's a lofty comparison. But the bigger body gives you that feel where he can box people out and be the 50-50 guy down near the goal line. Strong runner also.
We may never see another receiver at Ohio State that runs routes and the way Marvin did at that height. Marvin does all those things that we talked about here, but he's literally 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". So that's a lot.
Jeremiah Smith is listening, and he's going to have something to say about that. He might be in that echelon, and let's hope he gets there because that will be fun to watch.
Yeah, Jeremiah, to me, he's even bigger than Marvin. If he's as smooth as Marvin in out of breaks and stuff like that, then he really will be probably – hyperbole does not fear me with that guy, but still. Also, just for some frame of reference, yes, Duncanville did win the state championship. I did not realize I was bringing up a sore subject. Until Bakorian Moore commits to Ohio State, we are North Shore fans here. So I apologize if that's when you're losing sleep over. Anyway, William, more guys doing visits. Okay, we talked about uncharted waters yesterday a little bit on the show. Ohio State, we've long heard that the Florida early commit, and felt this, was always a little shaky. You want to make sure you're there on commitment day. Now that Nick Saban is gone, we've delved into the state of Alabama and got some early commitments, Bill. And is there a trend developing that we need to worry about Alabama commits vacillating? Naeem Offord, another great cornerback in the class, visited Oregon. He has no real ties to Ohio State. Alabama, you're getting on a plane to Ohio State, and again, the plane flight's probably twice as long to Oregon. But your thoughts on Naeem Offord sticking with Ohio State or possibly flipping, and if so, would it be Oregon?
Well, I did speak with a source certainly close to Naeem Offord's recruitment yesterday, and the source had previously told me that he loves Ohio State. He may look at other schools and all that, but in the end, he loves Ohio State, and that's where he wants to go. So after he visited Oregon this past weekend, I checked with that source again, and a similar vibe. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. The source feels like, he still loves Ohio State. I think, he feels that's most likely where he's going to continue to be with and stay with his commitment. But the visit to Oregon did go well, and he's expected now to make an official visit. It looks like he will make an official visit to Oregon. So you don't like that, obviously. Anytime somebody makes an official visit to a school, you've got to be concerned. We went through this all with Jeremiah Smith ad nauseum last year. And there was a chance. Jeremiah Smith did think, he had some reason to think. But in the end, he signed with Ohio State, obviously. This source feels like that's the likely end outcome of this. But again, you'd prefer that the recruitment just be shut down and that be it.
We will follow that one religiously. Of course, Blake Woodby, the slot corner in the class, actually the first one. I don't know if he's the first one to quit, but he's been around for a while. He decommitted. So we shall see. Things are fluid. We're getting a lot of questions about wide receiver here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to read our second ad, and we're going to dive deep on this, and then we'll get into the Akron Hoban stuff, which is awesome. All right. This is not about shaving your private parts, which is good when I have people around. Notice I don't have those guys on the show when I read the Manscaped ad because I get stage fright. All right. With Father's Day right around the corner, what do you give the man who has everything? You're looking at 3 of them. Easy. You give him an experience he'll never forget. You give him Omaha steaks because a world-class dad deserves a world-class steak. The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to put a smile on the big guy's face this summer with hand-selected gift packages starting at just $89. Just go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code BUCKNUTS at checkout for an additional discount when you shop gourmet gift packages for Father's Day. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. Endless flavor, endless variety, and endless value. Truly, they have perfected more than steak, and your dad is guaranteed to love every bite. Pick from premium proteins like the juicy pork chops, air-chilled chicken, and beefy burgers. Go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code BUCKNUTS to get an exclusive savings. Shop for unforgettable gifts that are guaranteed to make your unforgettable dad's day. But if there's one thing Omaha Steaks knows, it's that dads want steak. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code BUCKNUTS at checkout to save on exclusive packages starting at just $89. All right. Seriously. Father's Day cookouts are about as USA as it gets. I will be doing it. And Dietrich just made my day there. I think offers stays. All right, here's what I want to talk about.
I agree with Dietrich, by the way. Would I ever not agree with her? I don't know. But like I said, you worry about an official visit somewhere. But again, in the end, the source feels like he will be a Buckeye. And I'm glad also, Dan, that Dietrich agrees.
I was just going to say, Bill, publicly disagreeing with Dietrich, not going to go well for you. No. I think you chose the right spot there. All right. There's a general vibe here about receivers. I'm starting to get this question a lot, so I want to shift to this a little bit. Not just, and I'll ask you, Bill, a mechanical question first, and then kind of the spiritual questions afterwards. The first question, Bill, if you had to pick three receivers who are going to be in, who would they be?
Oh. You know, when you look at the receivers that Ohio State is, we've talked about DeCorey Moore. We've talked about Jamie Ffrench. We haven't talked about yet, we're about to, Vernell Brown. We haven't talked about Dalen McCutcheon. We haven't talked about Phillip Bell from California, Quincy Porter, Dalen McCutcheon. You know, there's your names right there. And I legitimately could see any one of those wide receivers being in Ohio State's class when all is said and done. And you've already got one in the class, Desi Jones, by the way. So who would be three others that I could see in Ohio State's class? And again, I could see any one of those guys in Ohio State's class, would not rule out any one. If I had to go down the line or whatever and say, I would say that I would go with Ffrench most likely. I'd probably still go with Brown, but again, not a sure thing. And I'd probably go with Quincy Porter as being the other one. Those would be the three. You know, it's hard, though, to say. Phillip Bell, I've said for quite some time, he's going to end up, in my opinion, at Ohio State or USC. That'd be a good example. Talon Taylor's going to end up at one of three schools. Ohio State is one of them. Dalen McCutcheon likes Ohio State a lot. So, you know, that's a great group of wide receivers, and that would be the three additions I would have in right now. But, again, we haven't started the official visits yet, at least for Ohio State. That starts in about a week and a half, May 31st, and those official visits are going to be key for a lot of guys.
We're going to show you some highlights of Vernell Brown here in a minute, but this is kind of the vibe I was talking about. Rick had a question. Does competition scare some of these guys away from Ohio State? We got a little more specific down here with Eric Turnbull. Any wide receiver coming in will be in J.J. Smith's shadow for a couple years. That matters to some of them, I think. Mark, what's your vibe? Is there not enough room at the end for these guys? You're talking about the elite of the elite. Most of the time, it's been my experience that these guys don't care about competition. What's your vibe as we put Vernell Brown up on the stage here?
Yeah, I think with the amount of 3 and 4 receiver sets, that there is some room for a deeper class. You know, you can sell these kids on, hey, we're using 4 receivers, we're rotating guys in. There will be looks for maybe 4 or 5 guys this year. That at least gets them a developmental role. What we're watching here is a guy who reminds me, I don't know why Santana Moss popped in my brain, but he's a short little guy and quick, and it looks like he can do some return skills. And, of course, there's the deep speed, but he has some quickness where he's in and out of breaks, and he's got a little jitterbug to him where you see on the sidelines a couple plays ago. he looked like he was trapped and he danced his way out of it. Down here, near the goal line, you think, oh, we need those jump ball guys, but he can win with quickness on a slant or a whip route or some of these double moves. But here's going to be your return skills. But this is a little smaller. You can see there, he looks shorter than the last couple of guys we watched, but doesn't suffer from a lack of speed. Yeah, like he makes up for that. And sometimes when you're small, it's almost an advantage to be less of you because there's less of you to get if you're just going to be a smaller, lighter player. But the quickness he's shown, maybe we'll go one more play here and watch him come in and out of his cuts, or it's just another play down by the goal. Oh boy, what a catch. What a catch. Yeah, some of these guys are so impressive. Bill, when you started naming those 6 names and they wanted you to name 3, you're just asking for trouble because there's going to be 3 guys that put their hands up and go, really? I'm not one of them? Yeah, great class to choose from. But to your original question, it is hard to get a big class because someone eventually sitting there one night and they realize they're going to be the odd man out eventually. But there is room because we have depth that needs to be filled on the roster.
And actually, 7 names total, and not including the one that's already in the class in Desi.
Right. I forgot to mention a guy from Wayne, New Jersey, who committed when I think his partner, the defensive back, committed at the same time. And I want to reiterate what we said yesterday, that Andrew Ivins has said that on the recruiting scene now, it's gotten to the point where the group of receivers at the top, everyone kind of waits to see who commits to Ohio State, and then everyone kind of goes elsewhere. So that's kind of the first ticket out. So we should be positive on that. There were some questions of Andrew Miller made a good question. Ms. Sanchez, you should team up with Coach Walton to make sure what Naheem stays, and then wouldn't you know, she will see him next week in Nashville, so they will definitely talk to him. Naheem knows what's good for him. He too will not go against Ms. Sanchez. All right. The names that we get, the usual suspects. I'm going to start playing the theme from the movie here when we talk about these guys. Bill, please bring us up to speed on Fahim Delane, Trey McNutt, and Dorian Brew in one fell swoop.
Well, I guess let's start with Delane. I still like Ohio State's chances there. He's for quite some time had Ohio State as a top choice, no doubt about that. If I was going to have to predict right now, I would still say I like Ohio State in that one, but he is going to take official visits. He's got LSU, he's got Maryland, he's got Ohio State. That is June 7th. He's got Oregon, Virginia Tech. And again, these official visits are going to be huge, but I still like the Buckeyes' chances there. McNutt, and I've said this for a while, that is far from a done deal for Ohio State. I know I talked to Trey pretty often. I talked to his dad, Richard, who, of course, feeling old, I covered when Richard was in high school and all that. Trey is going to he's going to do his visits. And he has told me he's not going to make a decision. At least the plan is he's not going to make a decision at the end of June or even July. He's going to wait in the season. So there's a lot of recruitment left on Trey McNutt. If I had to make a prediction right this second on Trey, I would probably go with Ohio State. But again, that's far from a done deal. He's going to make those visits, and then he's going to take some time. He's going to think about things and make his choice. And then you've got Dorian Brew. We've talked about that had he stayed with that April commitment date, I really feel confident he would have picked Ohio State at that time. But he pushed things back. He wanted to look at other schools, and that's what he's been doing. And he again, Ohio State is very much a player in that battle, but it's far from a done deal.
Before we move on here, Bill, Mika Hanna. So we're not out on Ffrench. I don't know if we made that clear enough.
Oh, no, definitely. I think the key is, does he take those visits to those other schools in June, then make the official visit to Ohio State during the season? That's the key. If that happens, and that's an if right now because he hasn't said he's going to do that for sure. If it happens, then I would like Ohio State's chances.
All right here. let's switch to the Hoban vibe here. But first, I'll start with this. Let me see how I messed that up. We'll open it with Eli Lee. The Oracle asks, William, he also means Mark, why is Eli Lee a stock dropping on 24/7 Rivals? I hope he means 24/7 and Rivals, because I couldn't handle running Rivals and helping run 24/7. That would be laborious. There are 60 linebackers rated higher than Lee in the nation. We had a boarding house item yesterday about James Laurinaitis telling Eli Lee he's faster than James Laurinaitis, and James Laurinaitis is a pretty well-decorated football player. Mark, can you do your Akron-Hoban deep dive here, beginning with Eli Lee?
Yeah, we have video. You got to pop it on the screen here. But when you talk about Eli Lee, I have been watching him for the last 3 months work out and work on his quickness and explosion and coverage ability. And ironically, it's the same thing I saw out of the workout here. And when Dan said, hey, all those places you've been, let's go start somewhere where, there's some Ohio State caliber prospects. It's all about Akron-Hoban. I mean, we're going to go through 7 or 8 kids here who have legitimate chances to be maybe an Ohio State kid, but at least a Power 5 kid. If Eli Lee is being devalued, it's because the middle linebacker position of the C-gap to C-gap player has been devalued. I know the Sam and Will linebackers are the flashy guys that run the crazy 40 times, but the toughness to take on the guards and tackles is Eli Lee. This is Peyton Cook, the receiver that Coach Hartline was there to watch and check out. He is a candidate for an offer. He and Jameer Brown from Wayne were probably 2 of the more impressive receivers I saw. So seeing him catch a few balls there and how loose he looks. And you see him here at defensive back. He was actually playing some corner. That could only be one person right there, Sam Greer. And when he stands next to other humans, you see why Ohio State offered him as a freshman. He's like a Sasquatch, literally and figuratively. It's hard to find him and get film on him because he hasn't played much. And he's probably as big as Bigfoot. Like if he came out of the woods with a hairy suit on, you wouldn't, think it was anything other than a creature. He's moving really well, and I think he has more pop in him than he had in the past. You could see him there banging on those bags. Albert Hill, I've covered ad nauseum. He was playing some receiver and did some stuff like that. I didn't see him playing much DB. I might have been filming someone else when he was actually a defensive back, but we know who he is. We've seen 6 raw talent videos on this kid. Braden Feaster, okay? This was their starting freshman tailback. Look at those quads on him. I think Quadzilla would be a nice nickname for him. He's going against Eli Lee right here. They look like the same person. Feaster's a name that we're going to have to talk about and know because this kid might actually be a running back. The move he just put on right there at 230 pounds is amazing. And the hands and the pull away speed. He might be a linebacker. Bryden Feaster, okay, I hope I said that right. Take a good look at this kid. What grade do you think his brother is in? By the definition on his arms and being 6'3", 228 pounds, he's in the class of 2028 8th grader. I don't know where he's going to fit in on the Akron-Hoban team yet, but when your brother is bigger than you in 8th grade, good-looking player. Yeah, so this is why there's so many players at Hoban. Tate Crable is a receiver, but he kind of has a tight end look to him here. He might not be an Ohio State tight end, but he might be a Power 5 tight end. He's looking pretty good, got a long wingspan. If he puts down some blocking on film, he'll be a guy to look at. John Johnson, didn't know anything about him. He was a freshman, going to be a sophomore. He earned a Kentucky offer after this performance. He had a day locking down Peyton Cook. Yeah, he's a 6'4" defensive back. So plenty there. Ant McMullen, we've seen it, the raw talent. He's the backup running back to Feaster, but he's probably more explosive. So their 1-2 punch equal the Ohio State 1-2 punch of what we have. Speed, thunder, lightning. Tylen Boykin's another receiver with multiple MAC offers. He had some speed and quickness. Right here, you see him blow by a defender, but he doesn't get a good ball here, so I don't discount him for winning on the route. And then Ace Brown's the only kid I didn't get film of, but we've seen Ace Brown at linebacker. He could be a Power 5 linebacker. He's working at a defensive end. He's trying to find his spot. But those guys right there top the list at Hoban, and there might have been 5 or 6 other guys. And I wanted to show you guys something that.
Oh, look at that!
Oh my goodness gracious!
Look at that!
Yep.
Will there be a show? Will there be a show when all 3 of us are wearing that? You're damn right there will be.
I tell you what, this shirt is made of sandpaper and steel wool, and every time I move, I get turf burn. It is not a high-quality T-shirt. Whoever is printing the Flintstones gear is not using high-quality Hanes material, but I did channel my inner tracksuit for Bill Kurelic today, and then I could surprise everybody with the shirt.
Yes. Hoban's private school, correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Catholic, yeah.
And that comes from Dietrich's confidant, who is lurking, so be careful. And I'll say this. That's what I got out of that tape. It was nice to see all the other dudes, but the kid who started is it Feister?
Yeah, Feaster. There's two Feasters.
Do you know the dad and the mom by chance?
I saw the dad standing there talking to some of the college coaches, and the sons are looking like him. He's obviously found a weight room himself, and
good Lord,
I mean, really, two kids that are that young, that are that impressive. So we'll be saying that name, and we better get it right. I'm pretty sure it's Feaster. Some people may say Feister, but I heard college coaches call him Feaster.
That was staggering.
And if you're a high school. I mean, I didn't go. There's probably 3 or 4 more kids with lower offers that I didn't get into because I didn't have much tape in. But you got to have 10, 12 kids there with Division I. No wonder they're in the state championship game. No wonder they take teams from out of state at will. Like Coach Terrell has no problem scheduling anybody. Just call them and ask them. And, hey, if the week's available, come on down. I mean, and with a team like that, why would you be afraid of anybody? Why would you second guess who you should be playing? So it's truly an impressive visit to Hoban. And you know what? We're going to have more videos like this Thursday of other schools. Glenville was just impressive. Cleveland Heights was just as impressive. Trotwood Madison, Wayne. I mean, there were schools where you have 5, 6, St. Xavier. We have some great footage coming. I hope everyone enjoyed what you just saw because I got plenty of it.
And last year, I went and saw a Hoban play big school state champion, Lakewood St. Edward. What a game that was. And I might add, our friend Eli Lee, I was very impressed with him. And why he would be, dropping, I don't really know.
And if anything, I have been watching him improve literally week by week. So I don't know how he could drop where I literally see him taking more like getting better in coverage, working on his quickness. He looks a little bit lighter, actually. When I watched him the other day, I'm like, okay, I see the progress. You don't think that he watches these shows and his family doesn't watch and they don't whisper to him, hey, some of these guys think that you need to move better. Some of these guys want to see you cover better. I mean, it's out there. He knows, and I like how he's addressing it, even though, and I made this joke to college coaches, you put Eli Lee in man-to-man versus a slot or a running back with no coverage over the top, you're getting fired. That's not the type of player you brought in. You have will linebackers or safeties to do that type of job, but this kid's trying to do it. He wants to be the guy that doesn't come off the field in third down, and you can trust him in coverage. So when you see these rankings, I know we were in the business of rankings, but a little grain of salt. We're here on the ground telling you there is nothing to worry about. And for the style of play he's being recruited for, the guy in the middle, he is James Laurinaitis 2.0 or AJ Hawk 2.0. He fits that mold. That's what those guys did. You don't have to be the fastest guy in the world to go run 100-meter to go play between the tackles and stick your nose on people and be a knockdown guy and not a drag down guy.
Well, just for recent reference, we didn't ask Tommy Eichenberg to travel the middle of the field in coverage a lot, and he's a fantastic player. So that's clear. Just to clarify for our guy out in Texas. So this is Texas and Ohio are very different. There are some great public school programs in Ohio, but the best teams tend to be private schools because they recruit across the board. Only need to look at the line that the Armstrong brothers played on last year. You could not craft that line at a public school unless you were living next to the Browns facility or something and getting all the children of the offensive linemen. I'm not even kidding when I say that. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to do that. That's not realistic. However, it's interesting in this state that they do play off against each other. And in Texas, I believe the public schools would just walk over any of the private schools. But I digress, and we are done. 35 minutes. Correct, sir. similar to California. Exactly. That was a great show. We'll be back on Thursday with more infotainment. It's nice out there in Ohio for once. Get out there and enjoy the day. Have a good one, Bucknutters.